And so one of the things that my friend was asking me
Right.
was like, how do you do all those things? How do you do
Yeah,
like,
how do you do he like, in the context of just being, like, your
yeah,
super dad and your super husband, and, like, yes, we all have our faults, but you are a really good dad, and you are a really good husband despite being really good at all the other
well,
things
and
you
I
do.
would point
So,
out that it
like,
wasn't
how do you do
always,
it?
I would point out that it wasn't always that way because this is 15 years. You're like, I was gonna.
I would not go to. I will attest to that.
Yeah,
You always had a heart to be a good dad and a
yeah,
heart to
we've
be a good
grown.
husband, though.
Yeah, so, like, I always had the intent, like, for me, it was like this grand experiment because I know that I have this thing on my life, this gift of being in business and building and being a leader, and I've been doing that with God the whole time, but there has been a heck of a lot of development for me and growth in my character and patience and being able to prioritize to get to the point where we are now, where we can say
Mhm.
that, like, I do have a really good relationship with our kids and with you. And I would say, I think there's a lot there, and we'll probably have to like touch on this in different ways multiple times
Yeah.
over this, podcast. But a good way to simplify it is just priorities.
Mhm.
Like, I simply prioritize my marriage more than my business. And another way to look at that is that I'm willing to have a less successful business and to find wealth slower because I need to prioritize my marriage over it.
Yeah.
And being able to like compare the two things and actually just say, yeah, I'm willing to give up success, financial success or whatever, or prestige or whatever it is, all those things that we kind of get tricked into really pursuing with the entrepreneurial world, like I would say the main narrative. I'm just willing to be less successful in business because I have to be willing to accept that internally to be a good dad and be a good husband. So part of that too is trust. Like, I have to be willing in those small moments to trust that God is going to provide for us,
Mhm.
that He is going to be the one that is the driver for the success that we have. Like, yes, I need to work. And yes, if I worked more or longer hours and skipped out on family time and didn't show up to sports games and wasn't as present with you and the kids, then sure, we would make more money and we'd be more successful. But that's not the point.
But
That's
at
not our
what
goal.
cost?
At what cost, right?
At
Like,
what cost? What's the trade-off?
yeah, like I don't want to get to the end of this
Really healthy
road
business and
and
a
and
failing marriage over it.
yeah, yeah, and then, be divorced at the end.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not
Or
an
just
option.
really not connected and not
Right.
happy and all kinds of wounds or
Yeah, so
all
I would say
with or
there's
with
a
your kids who just don't have yeah,
there's a
that
base
connection to
value
you.
system, right? It's like a base value system that says that my kids and my marriage, my relationship with God, and even some of my mentoring relationships, like those are more important than our business success.
Yeah.
And part of that, it's like, it's not despair. It's not this thing. It's like, oh, well, like, then there's no hope. Well, that's not true.
And it's
But
not giving up on that and not
no,
trying to do your best still and do it well.
yeah,
That's what like, bringing it back to our friend asking the question, like, he knows, like, how well you carry these things, and that was probably a piece of asking that question, that you're not just, like, great at fatherhood and great at being a husband, but not doing other things well,
mhm,
but that you it's not meaning you don't try to do well, but it's having those priorities. And I think a big thing for us was realizing and kind of defining, values for our
mhm,
family and vision for our marriage and our family and where we are headed and where we want to
yeah.
be and be on the same page help to navigate those priorities that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think a good way to get through it and be able to still pursue dreams and build and have a healthy ambition in context of wanting to be like a kingdom-minded person that
Mhm.
has these priorities, right? Um, is patience and trusting God on His timing,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
on one hand,
That's
I'm
good.
like
Trust God
taking
on his timing
right because
and ask him what his timing is.
yeah, like if he gave us promises about different businesses that we have and different dreams that we're pursuing, then that means that like really it's on him to come up with like the timing for when that's going to happen. And we we can take risk and we can be obedient and we can work hard and partner with him in that, because obviously that's a part of it. But I think like in the day-to-day moments when I'm sitting down and I'm like, I really feel like I need to get this next 3 hours of work done, but it's time for me to stop and go have dinner with my family and participate in tuck-ins and help with dinner or cleaning the house, right? Be present, whatever it is. Like in that moment, I have to choose to trust God with tomorrow and with what comes next.
Yeah.
And part of that too is like being able to admit to myself, this is the stage of life that I'm in, and embrace that. Because I think I spent a lot of time in the past, like my mind and my heart was too much in the future and what may happen. And like I would push towards that and sacrifice my responsibilities and those ministries of today because I wanted to make this future thing happen.
Yeah.
And I kind of talk about that a little bit more in my book and kind of flesh it out. But I feel like where we've progressed now is that we really do deeply trust God, that he is in charge of the timing of success for our businesses, or even if they will be or not. And that we have those priorities laid out of what is more important, and not being naive that like we can do it all and have everything be the best. Like you actually have to decide what's more important and which thing are you willing to sacrifice for to put on the top of the pile, and which thing gets like kind of on the bottom of the pile.
At times they act like, many times actually, they are actually competing.
Yeah.
And I imagine that creates a lot of tension. I know. Not just imagine. I'm your wife.
Yeah.
I'm in it with you.
Yeah.
And even the tension of like what you said when you were like, I had to think about it. And at night when we were talking before going to bed, and you said that you had to be okay with knowing that you could
be more successful.
You could be more successful.
Yeah.
You could get there faster. You could have done more.
Yeah.
And you know that you could be really good at it.
Yeah.
And yet choosing, okay, but my priority is a healthy marriage and a date night tonight, or actually helping tuck in my kids, or whatever it is, being there on Saturday for our kids' soccer games and things like that, that have to produce this tension though between like what could be and knowing like you could get there faster, you could be more successful, like, and especially for somebody with such ambition, just innately in you, that creates tension between, I know I could actually do so much better or get there faster.
That's probably it. Get there faster.
Yeah. It's more like get there faster.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that tension?
So
what does that look like?
I think like so you make the choice, right? You're like, I am going to choose family and marriage today, which means I'm not choosing the extra business time. And I think it's really important what you do with your heart in that space.
I
like
agree.
It could lead to bitterness.
Yeah.
Right.
Which won't actually be fruitful for you.
No, because then what?
Actually do similar. You may as well just have kept growing your business.
Yeah. Like bitterness is a good indicator that you need to do some hard work.
Yeah. You need to do some hard work in that tension.
So for me, like I mentioned, is I take that tension that you're talking about of like where we are and what I've seen in God's promises and what could be, and we're not there yet. So that pull, and when I make decisions to prioritize family, I take that tension, and instead of letting it turn into bitterness, because I did sometimes, like these are all things that I feel like I've done and then kind of grown through and figured out. I put it in trust, and I say, okay, God, I trust you with this. And so it's more of a positioning of like surrender rather than being in control. And that's a part of it too in business.
That's good. It's leaning into surrender rather than control.
Yeah, because I know that I could try to control the outcome more, but because of our priorities, I'm not deciding to do that right now. And so then I choose to surrender and trust God that his timing is perfect and that he has a plan for his timing that keeps in his plan is us having a good marriage.
Yeah.
And in his plan is us parenting well. And he wouldn't give us promises or lead us down a path that led to the destruction of those things.
Right.
And
for
so,
the sake of that promise.
Right. So if he's put this in me and I'm like pursuing business with God, it must include the current space and timeline that we have in our lives. Right? Like
the current season.
Like God wouldn't call me to destroy our family.
Yeah.
But he does call me into business, and he did build me in a way that's obviously one of the ways that I have to put my impact on the world with him. And he's created me uniquely for this time so I can go and do these things.
Right.
But it's just got to be in context of his timing. So again, patience, right?
Context of his timing and the season of life that you're in.
So there's like
too.
long suffering, there's patience, right? These fruits of the spirit, these things that we have to like
Yeah.
pull on,
To
right?
grow.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it took a lot to get there.
Yeah.
But over the years, we've continued to desire to do this God's way, to like do this business thing God's way. You and I both have.
Yeah.
And like he's had so much grace on us